Hello? Okay. Recording on that. Okay, Dad, why don't you go ahead and tell me the story you told me about the pool growing up?
Okay. Well, my name is Dan Ward. I grew up in South Alabama, raised on a small farm. But as kids growing up in that part of the world, it's very hot, and we would go to the local creeks and rivers to swim in. We got as soon as one of us teenagers got old enough to get our driver's license, we'd go into town 7 miles to swim at the public pool. And we did that for several years, and it was also where there would be more girls, obviously. And we that was a weekend thing mostly because we worked during the week and on the farms, and so usually Sunday afternoon, sometimes Saturday night, we would go into that pool in town. So we did that for a number of years. And then I went away to college in '64, I think it was, and came back that fall. I can't remember if it was that fall or the next fall, but anyway, somewhere in the mid-'60s, I came back and I said to my sister, and by then I had a younger brother, a little brother, and another sister. I said to them, let's go into town and go to the pool and swim. And they told me, well, they closed the pool. And I said, I was just shocked. What are you talking about? They closed the pool. Because I'd been looking forward to that. And they said, well, they closed it because they didn't want blacks swimming with whites. I just, I guess that's just the way it was.
Well, pools were places where communities came together. That was where sort of bonds of childhood were formed. That was where, as teenagers, people began to sort of, forge love interests. I mean, these were, important social spaces, especially during the long summers in many parts of the South. In turn, again, you can imagine how that informed the sort of fears of white Southerners as they're seeing their whole sort of segregated world begin to sort of collapse.
June 19th in Nashville, Tennessee, 1961, at the height of the Freedom Ride, Nashville became the staging area for the entire nation. And we had an office on Jefferson Street. And during the lull between the Freedom Ride training and then the H.G. Hill boycott, Matthew Walker and I were running the office along with Diane Nash. And we decided we were bored. So just on a lark, we decided to come and test the wonderful pool here in Centennial Park. We knew we couldn't get in. It's one of the best pools in Tennessee by the public, for public, and it was only 25 cents. So we got 25 cents that day, hot day in July. Was it June, July? I've forgotten. We drove over here, took our money, went up to the cashier, and we asked for a ticket to get in, because no, she said no. But not only did she say no, she said, I'm going to call the mayor, and I'm going to find out what we should do. So the pool manager came out and talked. We were pretty popular by that time. Our faces were all over every paper. They knew we were. So he called the mayor, and the mayor informed him, and he informed the cashier at the entrance that we couldn't be admitted to the pool, and we knew why. And we need to go. So we said, no, we're not going to go. So he said, you know what, we're going to drain the pool. The manager said that. So Matthew and I just said, let's go check out that. So we walked around here, where you see this wall behind me, and we walked around and peered over the fence, and there they were. They were actually draining the pool, every single drop of water within 3 hours was empty, gone. So then they said, you know what, you guys can't go anywhere because the mayor's going to drain every pool. We said, all 23 pools in Nashville? Yes, every pool in Nashville is going to be drained. He did, same day. The reason he gave the press was there were financial issues that day. So no black kids ever swam in this pool. Nobody ever, again, used this as a pool. They filled it with rocks that next week, and it became an art center sometimes after we had left Nashville back in the 60s. I have no idea when they did that. But there's a brochure that talks about the repurposing of this facility, but it never mentioned the fact there was a pool closed because of racial issues. Never.
And public spaces were very important in that. These were these kind of, these hallmarks of white privilege. In a way, sort of public swimming pools became for, the average working class white Southerner sort of their own version of a country club. It was a place where they could go and other people couldn't. And that sort of was, something which they invested a lot of, they were deeply invested in, psychologically. It was sort of, that these were important places where, they could, sort of realize their own sort of advantages socially. And that also maybe helps understand why they were so quickly abandoned after desegregation.
It was a way to avoid what they consider confrontations. And so they closed the black pools and the white pools. The problem is they want to rewrite history and act like this never happened. There's no marker out here saying the site of the closing of the first large pool in Tennessee by the Civil Rights Movement. There's no indication that ever happened. That way they avoid the issue of the mayor and the city closing all the pools and having white kids drown because there's no pools that are safe, lifeguards, that are legitimate swimming places like this was. The day they closed the pools, they asked the civil rights people in the office to make a comment about that. And all of us said it's a shame that there'd be a lot of white kids drowning in illegal swimming holes, rivers and lakes and little swimming holes. And it happened. And we suggested that any kid that get drowned, that their families take their bodies and take it to the mayor's courthouse and put the body on the steps of the courthouse. That didn't happen, of course. But we were trying to say, you're responsible for the death of white kids who can't swim. And boys are going to learn how to swim somewhere, have fun in the summer. That's what boys do. And that happened. That happened. I like to see a marker. I like to see in the history of Nashville, I'd like to see the school children of Nashville understand what struggle is, what racism is, and not try to deny it. We get nothing from denying evil. It just comes back on you. And there's no way to eliminate it like they did in South Africa if you don't have a truth and reconciliation, period. And where you can let bygones be bygones and start fresh. That has not happened in the South at all, especially in cities like this city here, where they really want to be cosmopolitan, but just as racist as any other city in Alabama.
I had a friend in New York who needed to go to Jacksonville. He said, would I drive him down there on my way to Mississippi? Well, I knew what that involved. It was a straight shot south and you just make a right turn, 10 and go over to Mississippi. Well, I got to Jacksonville and lo and behold, I'd read up on St. Augustine and all that. And I said, well, I'm going to go down there and look at that. I'm right here. You go down there in a New Jersey Volvo, you get arrested right away for willful, wanton, and reckless driving. And that's how I got started in St. Augustine.
Well, I was in Albany, Georgia, and that summer, and a guy named Don Harris from SNCC, we just gotten out of jail. I had from trying to get in the swimming pool in Albany, and they wouldn't let us in, so they locked us up. So I spent 5 days in jail there. And Reverend Wells, who was one of the leaders of the Albany movement, and Jose Williams had sent out a call for some of us from Albany to come down to St. Augustine. So we did. We went down there and got involved. Well, we'd been in St. Augustine for a week or so. And the demonstrations, I think, had kind of, we marched morning, noon, and night in St. Augustine. And every time we marched, we got beat up most times. So that was something Jose, we talked about and wanted to do different. So we had a meeting at this church that we was talking about. He asked that, why don't we try, Dr. King and Dr. Abandonment that tried to go and have coffee at the Monson Motor Lodge, and they refused them, wouldn't let them in. So we thought that maybe we could do something different and have a wade-in or swim-in or something, and Al Lingo was going to be a part of it. that he would be in the hotel, and so we used to be his guests in a sense, but we couldn't go in the front door.
Put on our swimsuits and went out to the pool, and lo and behold, there was a camera over there, and there was a camera over there, and a camera there, covering what was going to go on in that pool. We were expecting whomsoever to drive up, jump the fence, and get in the pool with us. Turned out it was J.T. Johnson and 4 high school students whose parents had let them come from Albany, Georgia, to St. Augustine to do some stunts like this.
So what we did was come down the side of the street and jumped out of the car and over in the pool. And Al was already in the pool. So at that point, the manager didn't like that, Mr. Brock. So he got his pole and started trying to punch us out. And that didn't work, so he got his acid and put it in there. He started pouring that acid all over the pool. I think a lot of folks got us scared about it, but I didn't. It didn't really bother me that much. There was a lot of water, I know that acid. Maybe my mind told me that it wouldn't do nothing to me.
We just sort of enjoyed his difficulty. But then people who'd been up front, Martin and Ralph and others, came around that pool. There was a fence. And I can remember Martin King laughing and laughing and laughing at us because we were beginning to really get the goat of the people of St. Augustine. And by the time we wouldn't get out, they put a policeman in khakis to come flying through the air. You've probably seen that picture. And that was one of the pictures that upset Lyndon Johnson.
A lot of things had happened in St. Augustine, and every time we go to the beach, they was being so. I think Senator McGovern was the one who went into President Johnson's office and asked him had he seen that picture. Did he see the news that evening about this acid being poured on these people in Florida? And it's gone all over the world. First week in July, the Civil Rights Bill was passed. That ended the filibuster in Washington after this incident.
But when they did get us out of the pool, they ranked us around in our swimsuits and put us in a car and took us to jail.
And once we got out, the story behind it is that they got us out the pool, they jumped in and dragged us out, and they locked us up. Well, I went to jail in a bathing suit. So when they put me in jail at this prison, some people was already in there, Fred Shuttlesworth, C.T. Vivian, and Reverend Wells, a bunch of people was in jail. So when I got in, it was about time for dinner, I guess, and they wouldn't feed me. So we didn't say anything about it. I was still in my bathing suit. So the next morning they said the same thing. They wouldn't feed me because I didn't have one in the clothes. I said, well, this is where you locked me up. I didn't have it when I got here. So we decided after that we was going on strike. But amazingly, we stayed on strike for about 4 or 5 days. But one night that we heard all these gates being opened, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. So when we looked at it, that the Ku Klux Klan had decided they was coming in to get us. And Reverend Wells, he walked to the front of the jail where the doors was open, and he stood and watched these guys and looked them straight in the eyes. He never said a word. And they all dropped whatever they had and turned around and went back. I'd never seen anything like that in my life. And I knew then that the Lord had taken all the fear out of us, and there was nothing going to happen to us regardless of what we did. And I felt from that moment on very comfortable in the civil rights movement. I just didn't think nothing was going to happen to me. There's so many things happened in St. Augustine that folks didn't know anything about because the news media got beat up down there. Everybody got beat up. They didn't care who you were. If you was a part of what we was doing, or if you was trying to promote what we was doing, they didn't like that. It was Dr. King referred to it as the bloodiest place we'd ever worked. And it really was. A lot of people got hurt up down there.
Get out! Get out! Get out now! For real?
There's 3 numbers I could dial. 911. Okay?
Yeah, right.
Get out. Little punks. Get that.
Would you say that things are better now after what you both did? Do you feel that things are better?
I think the things are different. I don't know how better they are, but they are different. That was some things done